Coming up next, a legendary songwriter tells us how he started writing a song while he was sleeping on the floor of a bar. And then he finished that song at a Wiener Schnitzel fast food establishment, and he gave it to his roommates who happened to be starting a band that would become one of the biggest ever. They recorded it, and it ended up on the biggest selling album of all time. It's a great story, and he's going to tell it next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you work through your personal problems, your demons, through music, if you work through those things with music, you're going to dig this channel. Make sure that you subscribe right now so that you don't miss an episode. Check the box. And also make sure to become a part of our Patreon channel. And we actually have an exclusive new series beginning there. I know you're going to love it. Check it out. So I'm excited to bring you another episode, yet another episode from our series, Revelations. It's one of my favorite shows we do here. This is where featured artists reveal rare stories about their biggest songs, along with fascinating insight about their careers. Now, in this installment of Revelations, we're going to present a recent Zoom session we did with Songwriters Hall of Fame inductee, Jack Tempchin. Jack wrote or co-wrote several classic Eagles songs, including Peaceful Easy Feelin' that we're going to cover today. Easy feeling. And Already Gone. Already Gone. As well as co-writing a lot of Glenn Frey's solo hits, including You Belong to the City, Smuggler's Blues, True Love, and The One You Love. Here, Jack Tempchin details the story behind writing Peaceful Easy Feelin', one of the best Eagles songs out there. It appeared on the debut album, their debut album, as well as their greatest hits collection, which of course has become one of the biggest selling albums of all time. It's actually the biggest selling album of all time in America. It also talks about the California sound and the early formation of the Eagles. And that's where our story begins on Revelations. Now, as we go into this interview, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the only brand of glasses I wear, and they support our mission of keeping the music alive. I love all 12 pairs of Zenni that I own, maybe 15 at this point. Every one of them has blue blocks, and it's changed my life by stopping my frequent headaches. Go grab some yourself at Zenni.com today for less than a vinyl record. You're going to love them. Here's the story of the Eagles classic, Peaceful Easy Feelin'. Peaceful Easy Feelin' went to number 22 on the Hot 100, but it was much bigger than its chart position. I love the story about how this song came about. Tell our audience about where that originated.
Well, I had a buddy of mine, he created a poster for me, and this poster was advertising my playing, and it had the form of quotes from all these famous people. A real man, Joni Mitchell, understands media, Marshall McLuhan, a good boy, his mother, and, all these, and they were all made up. But I think a guy in El Centro had a small club. He saw this poster and hired me, maybe not realizing some of these were. And so I went out there to play. Some guys took me out there, and I made a date with the waitress, and she was going to take me to her place later. She left, and then she never came back. And I had already told the guys I didn't need a ride or a place to stay. And so I'm stuck in this little coffee house. The Aquarius Coffee House was a little mini mall. And all night, I'm just sleeping on the linoleum floor. And I get the poster and turn it over. I started writing. Mostly when you start writing a song, you just blurt out stuff of what Glenn Frey and I used to call El Blurto, our songwriting method. And you just start letting stuff come out, and then it's not that good, really, until after a while you may hit on something good. And if you use a tape recorder or you're writing stuff down, you don't even know it's good until later, and you look at it. And then the next day I looked, and there was the phrase Peaceful Easy Feeling. Peaceful Easy Feeling. I kind of felt that I had a good friend who was into Zen and psychedelics. Before there wasn't even LSD. We used 376 Morning Glory seeds, and they had to be heavenly blue Morning Glory. Pearly Gates and the other colors didn't work, and they have LSD in them. And he said, yeah, well, you're holding on to things. And if you let go of something, then you have a hand free to pick up something else. And also he said, you're looking and you're looking and you're looking for something. And then when you stop looking, it's like letting go of something. And that's when you free yourself up to find what you're looking for. And Peaceful, Easy Feeling was kind of like, yeah, if this girl doesn't show up, well, I'm okay. I really don't need her. I really don't, I'm already standing on the ground. And then at that point, you're free to accept some love if it comes along because you're not so desperate. And she never came back. I don't remember her or her name and those people moved to Australia that had the coffee house. I never saw them again. And then I went back to San Diego, and I would walk around all the time with my $13 Stella guitar and tied on with a piece of string. And I would sing Tambourine Man all the time. But I was making up this song, and one day I finally came to the last verse, and I sat down at the Der Wiener Schnitzel on Washington Boulevard and waiting for this Polish dog, and I wrote the last verse to Peaceful, Easy Feeling. And then life is strange because 40 years later, they celebrated that day, and they had newspaper people come and the Der Wiener Schnitzel people, and the place was still there. So many things had changed in 40 years. I would never have thought that this hot dog place would still be there. But the company presented me with a solid gold wiener. So
better than the Grammy.
It's not the Songwriter Hall of Fame, but nobody else has one.
That's right. Well, ironically, it's really cool how these things come back, because the flyer that you wrote, the poster that you wrote the lyrics for, is in the Grammy Hall of Fame, along with that $13 guitar, right?
That's
right. In the Grammy Museum. Not only did you get the golden wiener, but you also, the table, right? The table said where you sat at.
Yes. Well, they put a plaque, a metal plaque in this like cement table. And then I was honored to find out about a year later, somebody had stolen the plaque. And now they finally closed the place, and it's a donut shop,
Oh my gosh. It was Peaceful, Easy Feeling Day, wasn't it? The mayor in San Diego. Yeah. December 1st, 2012.
Wow, man. 2012. Wow.
I know.
That's right.
You're coming up on 50 years on that song. I understand that you were living in a communal type home with other musicians, and that you'd watch in this big window, beautiful girls walk by. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I had a big house on Center Street in San Diego, and it was my place, and I had 6 or 8 or 10 of my friends living there at different times. My brother and I had a candle shop in the garage. We made candles, sold them at the Del Mar Fair. Yeah, we'd look out the big picture window and be stoned and see some, basically the way I say it is, we'd fall in love at the drop of a hat with some girl sitting on the bus stop, and I'd have a whole relationship with her, and we'd break up and get back together. Then the bus would come, and she'd be gone. So, and also, I kind of feel like if you're a girl who was walking around 50 years ago in San Diego, Peaceful, Easy Feeling, I kind of wrote each verse about a different girl, and one of them could be you. And you would never have known that that you were in the song that you were hearing on the radio. So, and then Glenn Frey and J.D. Souther came down to San Diego to play at a coffee house that I was at all the time. So I invited them, and they started staying at my house every time they came down. And so I'm still good friends with JD, and Glenn died a few years ago. I was great friends with him for 47 years, and then we wrote a lot of stuff together. But we would play music, and this was before they did their first album together, Long Range Penny Whistle, and quite a few years before the Eagles. When Jackson Browne introduced Glenn Frey and JD to David Geffen, I was staying up there in Echo Park, and they had me come up later, and I was staying at Jackson Browne's place, and they were introducing me to David Geffen. And Glenn Frey came into the room while I was practicing the song, Peaceful Easy Feeling, that I had just written. And he said, "Hey, Jack, I have a new band. We've only been together for 8 days. And I wonder if we could work that song up." I go, "Sure." So I sang it onto a cassette. And he came back the next day with a cassette of the song worked up by his new band, which was the Eagles. And that's how he heard the song and got a hold of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I just love how certain lyrics came to you, like the turquoise earrings.
I think I was back in San Diego and I was at a street fair walking around, and I saw this beautiful brown-skinned girl with these turquoise earrings, and I just put them in the song.
Your sparkling earrings lay.
She'll never know. She'll never know that she inspired me, you know.
Now, when Glenn got the tape, was it always going to be Glenn that was going to sing that? I've just always been interested in that. Did you ever know if Don tried it or anything like that? I'm just curious.
I wasn't really part of that. You know, I didn't even know Don then. And then later he said, "Come on and watch us rehearse." And so I went, and the place was like as big. They were rehearsing in this little rehearsal studio, and the place was as big as a closet. You know, it had like Henley's drums, and they're rehearsing, and I see Don Henley sing "You Don't Miss Your Water Till Your Well Runs Dry" as he's playing the drums, and he's singing this, and I'm just going, who is this guy? I mean, it was just incredible. And Glenn's sitting there, so I'm sitting on the couch, you know, and I'm about 3 feet from the band. He goes, "Yeah, we're gonna bring these record labels in. We're gonna put this guy here, this guy here, this guy here. They're just gonna be right in front of us, and we're gonna." But as far as I wasn't really around to know when they went to England and recorded. I think Glenn pretty much brought the song in and intended to do it.
I read a story about how they invited you to listen to the album before it was released, and you hear the first 3 songs. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, Glenn came down to San Diego, and he had I say these things that people now don't know what I'm talking about, but a 2-track tape. You know, it was actually a piece of tape on a reel. And in those days, if you wanted to record something, you had to, you know, go into a studio or buy a really expensive. So I had a Revox tape recorder. So he brought it over the house, and there was about 4 or 5 of us, and he started playing this new record that he just got from England. And I heard "Take It Easy."
She's a friend of mine. Take it easy.
And I'm sitting there going, I mean, I'd known Glenn a long time. I'd heard him singing with JD. I thought he was great, but this was overwhelming. This was like just, you know, it's an incredible song, incredible record, and everything. I'm just going, wow, that's the best thing I have ever heard. And then the next song was "Witchy Woman."
She's a restless spirit on an endless flight.
Whoa, that's the best thing I've ever heard too, you know? And then the third song was "Peaceful Easy Feeling."
Peaceful, easy feeling.
And I just said, you know, this is the best record that I've ever heard. You know, so 40 years later, whatever, those 3 songs on the Greatest Hits album were the biggest selling record of all time.
I know.
So, you know, I was right. But just to hear that and go, wow.
And to hear it before it really had been released or anything, just incredible.
No, nobody had it. It was only on this tape. You know, nobody had it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the song evokes state of tranquility. Always been such a great song. And I've heard you say before, it's not a love song exactly. And you kind of explained that before.
Yeah. And I never thought in terms of it being a hit or anything. You know, I was kind of writing these songs for myself and for me to sing, and even if you had asked me, I would have thought, no, it's not a traditional love song. It's not going to be a hit. you know. But it's funny, people are a lot, don't underestimate people. They really, really know what's happening, and they know what they like, and they know what does it for them.
Well, Jack, do you remember the first time you heard it on the radio, where you were?
Yeah. Yeah. I had a girlfriend, and I got a Volkswagen bus and fixed up the inside, and we're traveling up the coast of California. We ended up living in that for almost a year. A few years later, we got married, and we're still married. But we came to Eureka, and we were in the park, and we meet some guy, and he's a band manager. He says his name is Star, and he invited us to come over to the band house. So we came over, and I'm in the kitchen of the place, and my song comes out of the little radio on top of the refrigerator. And there it was, Peaceful, Easy Feeling by the Eagles coming out. And I just said, wow, you know what? I think I'm going to be able to do this for a living. I think this is going to work. Before that, my aspirations were to be a street singer. And I hitchhiked up to Canada with my buddy, and we played at a fair, a county fair. And people threw tons of quarters into this hat, you know. And I remember going back to the place we were staying and just counting all these quarters, you know. And at that point I had the same feeling. I'm going to be able to do this. You know, to be able to travel all over the world and sing in the streets and have all these quarters. It's going to be great, you know. But then I moved on to, now I'm on the radio. Maybe I could be a songwriter.
That's awesome. Well, the fact that it's been used so many times also in pop culture. I mean, the taxi scene in Big Lebowski
Yes.
with the dude.
I hate the fucking Eagles, man.
What did you think about that? Did you see it in the theater or?
Yeah, I did. And I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was so great. Yeah. It's quirky, you know, because really the really cool dude is saying, I hate the Eagles. And, you know, it's traditional to hate the most successful stuff.
Yep.
Of course, the Eagles weren't that. When I was part of that, they were coming up, and they were, you know, they were the underdogs at one point. But of course, once they got big, then it's like, oh, they're too perfect, you know. And that's what the dude was expressing. But then his cab driver, he just throws him out. It's great. It was wonderful.
Oh, it's great. One of the most memorable scenes from that movie. I mean, it's such a cult movie as well. But It's been used in Entourage, and I remember it got used in Knight Rider as well when I was a kid.
Yeah. I don't even know those uses. I didn't see those things.
Well, the covers too, you know, on Common Thread, Little Texas covered it.
On that she can't take you away.
Of course, Vince Gill,
There's a already standing,
Buck Owens.
and I want to sleep with you in the desert.
What were your thoughts on some of those covers?
Oh, Vince Gill. Wow, I didn't know that. Oh, it's just fantastic, you know. Not a lot of people have released it. It's not a song that got covered a billion times or anything. But, you know, really, it's kind of like, I don't know how many people have covered Satisfaction by the Stones, but like once there's a record that's that good, people don't necessarily cover it. But I love it every time somebody does it or it's played on the radio. I just feel great.
Well, almost 50 years later, and to kind of wrap up on this song before we move on to some other ones, like you said, it's on the biggest selling album of all time. And it's the thing about Peaceful, Easy Feeling too that's so great is it's become a standard. We were talking at the beginning of this, how it hit number 22 is bigger than its chart position, but it really has become a standard of the American catalog. And it's a campfire song. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been on a camping trip, somebody busts out the guitar. That's one of the 4 or 5 songs that they'll sing first.
Wow.
What are your thoughts on it to just kind of wrap up?
Well, my friend is a lifelong surfer, and he goes all over the world chasing the great wave. And he tells me the same thing, is I'll be hitchhiking, I'll be traveling, and I'll go into the jungle, you know, and be getting near a great surf spot, and people will be around a campfire singing that song. And, you know, I guess it's like if you have a child and they grow up, and then maybe you did a good job, maybe you just got lucky. But if they go off and become the president, it's not really me anymore. It's like I did this thing, it went off, and it had a life of its own. Somebody told me in the Philippines they play it 3 times as much per capita as they do here in the United States for some reason. I've never even been to the Philippines. I mean, of course, it's what every songwriter would dream of. And I didn't even dream of it then because it was about the 3rd song I ever had recorded. You know, but it's a funny thing about modern life that your thing can just hitch a ride on a rocket ship like the Eagles into eternity and just become like James Dean, you know, just become something that lives on its own. So it's a beautiful thing.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about this Eagles classic and Jack Tempchin, one of the great songwriters out there. What are your picks for the best Eagles tunes of their greatest albums and the era that they came from? Let us know below. Let's have a great discussion. And if you like our videos, we do invite you to subscribe so that you can participate in this music community. Make sure to check us out on Patreon and our merch below. We have some new stuff. Help us keep the music alive. That is the goal every time. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.